Hello everyone. So I wanted to do a quick review on this book I recently read. It's The Millionaire Teacher, The 9 Rules of Wealth You Should Have Learned in School. It's by Andrew Hallam. So reading this book, I really enjoyed it. And that's why I'm doing the review. I'm really grateful that I found it. I honestly don't know how I found it. I just saw it on Amazon, so I decided to get it from my local library, and that's what I did. Basically, going into this book, I think I just saw it on Amazon, or I don't know where I saw it. Somewhere. But I ordered it on my library, waited a couple of days, and then I was able to go pick it up. I didn't read any of the reviews. The title is what caught my attention, to be honest. And yes, don't judge a book by its cover, but that's what it did. And so yeah, going into this book, the first chapter, he referenced a few of Thomas J. Stanley's reports or quotes from his own book. Thomas J. Stanley is the one that wrote The Millionaire Mind, and which I have read. It's one of the books that Dave Ramsey references a lot as well, and I've also read Dave Ramsey's a few of his books. I just don't have them because I also got them from the library. But going into the first chapter, I thought it was going to be redundant, because, like I mentioned, he mentioned a lot of Thomas J. Stanley's findings. So I had already read his book, and I was like, oh, it's going to be redundant. But the first chapter is more like the habits of millionaires, which is what Thomas J. Stanley writes throughout his whole book. But he goes on to explain how to invest and basically how to succeed on average income, household income. So yeah. So yeah, that's the first thing I wanted to mention. I thought it wasn't gonna be good at first, but it actually was. And then one of the reasons that I thought it was good was because he incorporated a lot of some humor into it. So he starts talking about how to invest. Basically, I think the main point is to invest in index funds, so stock index, bond index funds, and to avoid investing in mutual funds. And I had tried to read other investment books like Tony Robbins. Sorry, I think I forgot Tony Robbins' book Money, and I forget the rest of the title. But it just didn't catch my attention. It was kind of bland, and the investment jargon or vocabulary that was used, I don't know, it just wasn't interesting to me, even though I knew it was of value if I could understand it. But I think that's part of the reason I couldn't really understand. There's so much vocabulary, investing vocabulary, that I had never encountered in that book, that I just didn't end up reading the whole thing. But he made it a point to have a lot of people read his book and filter out all that jargon, investment jargon, and just try to make it as understandable as possible. And he does it really well, really clearly. Like one of the quotes here, when he's trying to explain what a bond is, it says, "Bond is a secret British agent with a license to kill. He sleeps with several women, multiple women, sorry. Give me one moment. I'm currently sick and I need to cough." Okay, so I'm back. I'm getting over a cold. So he goes on, "Never dies, and every 15 years or so gets a body transplant to look into a completely different guy. financial bonds are just as riveting. So I don't know, there's just something about the humor interlocked with a very clear, concise explanation about how to invest on a regular income and how everyone can basically do it. So humor interlocked with everything else was very useful in this book. He goes over how to invest in the United States, Canada, Singapore, and Australia. So I think it caters to a lot of countries and a lot of people, and I thought that was a good thing he did in the book. Let's see. Another point. And then he also mentions, to basically look out, because here it says most brokers and advisors really are just salespeople, and well-paid salespeople at that. In the U.S., the average broker makes nearly $150,000 a year, putting them in the top 5% of all U.S. wage earners. They make more than the average lawyer, primary care doctor, or professor at an elite university, and they're recommending actively managed funds. They're a bit like vendors in the guise of nutritionists selling candy, booze, and cigarettes. So basically, money influences people, is what he's saying, and the best thing to do instead of investing in mutual funds and other things like that, he says, just invest it in index funds. So I thought it was a really good book. I think you guys should go read it as well. It's a good intro into, learning more about investing, and he does recommend a few other books that I think I will want to read, because he just made it that interesting. Basically, when I learn something, when I actually understand it, I find it interesting, even though it's something as, as investing. And I think the last quote that I want to read out from his book is, just to keep in mind, this isn't taught in schools, investing or building wealth or being financially independent. Okay, so back to his quote. So most people spend far too much money on material things, invest inefficiently, and allow fear and greed to manipulate their wealth levels. So I thought that was a really good book, and I hope you guys, go out and read it, and have a good one. Bye-bye.